Hello, what is going on, everybody? It is another episode of The Money Talk with me, your host, Billy Zerillo. And what we're going to be talking about today is unpacking your financial past because it's more than likely affecting your financial future. But before we get into all that, just make sure that if you're watching this live, this is previously recorded, but make sure you comment, you like, subscribe, all those good things. And if you're listening to this on one of the various platforms, please make sure you do the exact same thing. Share this with some friends because it helps out the channel. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk about this important topic today for the simple fact there's a lot of stuff there on social media, right? There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, all the different types of channels about financial education, financial products, buy my course, buy this one thing, and your finances will be taken care of forever, right? You just got to do this one thing. If you do this one thing, you're good. And there's a lot of great information out there, but there's one thing in particular that you need to do, right? Not to be one of those people, but this is the one thing that you need to do. And it's really comes down to about your mind, and more specifically, one of the things that helps us advise clients a little bit better is understanding your history of money, understanding where you came from, your relationship. Knowing your relationship with money is so important because for the simple fact is, there's that old saying, like, if you don't know and learn about history, you're often doomed to repeat it. And because often in your history, let's be honest, right? If you've been on this earth long enough, we've all made tons and tons of money mistakes, right? I am here to tell you, even as a financial advisor, I've made tons of money mistakes. I know people that are really well off that have made financial mistakes. Right. And the thing about looking at your past, especially your relationship, how you interact with money, how you use money, how you view money, is so important to where you want to go in the future. Because for the simple fact, not understanding where you came from, you're probably going to be more prone to making those same money mistakes, right? If you made money mistakes at all, which, like I said, most of us have, like, let's be honest, right? But you can then begin to look at and say, hey, I made these mistakes. Do I want to continue to make these mistakes and stay where I am? Because my past decisions have led me to where I am today, regardless if they were good decisions, bad decisions. Maybe they were even good decisions that just turned out poorly, right? You can make the best decision, but you can't always control everything around you. But generally speaking, if you're making sound, logical decisions, more often or not, you're going to be coming out with a good outcome. And so I think the biggest thing that looking at your past, and it's one of the questions that we ask, right? It's one of the questions that we look at and say, what was it like for you growing up? And specifically with money, how did you learn about it? What were your first thoughts about money? How did money impact your choices, right? Whether you grew up in a household that had, that was well off, or maybe you didn't. Both situations will prompt you to look at money differently, especially as you become older, become an adult, and you start making your own money decisions, and you start making maybe money decisions for your children, and how you teach them. If you don't look at your past, you're doomed to repeat it, and you're doomed to pass it on to the next generation. That's why it's so important that you take a look at your money past, what happened, and ask yourself, are these the habits that I need to continue to do to get the future results that I want? For most of us, no, right? For the vast majority of us, we haven't made good money decisions up to this point. And so, really, by looking at our past, it just brings awareness, right? And I know when we look at our past, sometimes, especially with money, it can become a sore subject, right? It can become one of those subjects that can lead you to feel down about it. Maybe you've put yourself in a hole. Maybe you haven't. I don't know, but you've put yourself in a situation that maybe is a little bit embarrassing. Maybe it's a little embarrassing to you, and you don't want to admit to your failures. But really looking at your past when it comes to money doesn't shouldn't be a shame or a blame game, because I'm going to tell you this, right? You can blame yourself for those things. You can take credit for the decisions you made if they went well, but at the end of the day, you can't go back and fix them, right? And there's peace in that, because those decisions were made with the knowledge that you had with the certain situation that you were in at the time. And at the end of the day, especially related to money, if you're making decisions in a trauma filled way, you're just making decisions just to survive, right? You're not thinking logically, you're thinking emotionally. How do I survive? How do I get on to the next day, right? How do I get past this situation, past this pain? And so I can't fault anybody for making that, especially if you're doing it all on your own, right? If you're the sole person that's making the decision, it's hard. I get it, right? But it's really going back to the no shame, no blame. We have to get past that. We have to get past the discomfort and bring that out into the light, because by pushing it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug, all you have at the end of the day is a lumpy rug. You don't have any solutions to your problems, right? They still happened, regardless of you don't want to talk about them. You do want to talk about them. You want to push them under the rug, like I was saying. It still doesn't fix the problem. You're just putting off the inevitable, right? Like, you're going to deal with that issue one way or another, right? Especially like if you're waiting to save for retirement, right? Or you haven't taken that seriously yet. Yes, it might seem like, hey, I'm putting it off, and I'm worried about the here and now, which is super important. But or if you're a person that says like, hey, tomorrow's never guaranteed. Of course, tomorrow's never guaranteed, right? We all know that we're not on this earth forever. However, just because that's not guaranteed doesn't mean you shouldn't plan for it. Because when tomorrow does get here, if you don't have the means to move on after your job, it's going to be pretty hard for you. You're going to be dealing with a lot more stress at that point. So dealing with the stress now and removing that Band-Aid now, instead of having to rip off a scab, right? Removing a Band-Aid is a lot easier than removing a scab, right? Or taking stitches out, or repairing, a broken hip, right? Like it's easier to take care of that issue now than wait down the road. And so that comes back to the no shame, no blame, and opening up ourselves to talk about our past. And it just simply starts with a conversation, right? For me, I can tell you a little bit about my personal story. My personal story with money in particular is that, for me, I grew up in a household that was divorced. I remember my parents fighting about money, and that being an overarching conversation, right? So that really growing up, I was 10, 11, 12. So really development years of my life. And talking or listening to my parents fight about money, and not really, understanding that they're having an argument, but not really understanding to the gravity of which they are having an argument about. In that sense, with money, it definitely shaped my relationship with money and a lot of other things in my life. And I didn't really realize that until I was in my 30s. I went through my entire 20s. Like most of us, I feel like you don't really take your 20s that seriously. I mean, there are people that do, but for the vast majority of people, you're just trying to understand life, right? You're just going through life. You're got your first job or your first real career. If you're coming out of college or whatever you're doing, but your 20s, you're really just trying to figure life out. And if I would have known better, right? We all said that if I could go back in time and redo it, right, I would do X, Y, Z, right? Um, but having if I had the education that I had now, I probably would have not been in much student loan debt as I was in. I probably would have took care of that first. I'm going to share with you why here in a second. So going back to my story, my parents fought about money. They fought about money all the time. And that led me to have a scarcity mindset when it came around money. I thought, hey, like they're arguing about it. It must be a finite resource. It's something that I need to protect. It's something that we're running out of, right? And it just drew me into a scarcity mindset when it came around money. And so much that the thought of spending money, it's almost like a hoarder in the sense, right? The thought of spending $100 on one item, or paying extra to my debt, or saving money for retirement, or saving money for the future. The thought of it not being in my bank account ready for me to use paralyzed me. And so because of that, I went through my entire 20s when I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I didn't have a house yet, right? I was living with a roommate, had a girlfriend. Well, didn't have a ton of responsibilities, didn't have any kids, anything like that, right? And so I could have really spent a lot less time in in in, in debt, especially with a student loan, if I would have just been able to get around that scarcity mindset that I was going to run out of money, that I couldn't go out and make more money, right? You can always go out and make more money if you're breathing, right? If you're up, you're breathing, you're alive, you have the ability to go make income wherever, right? Whether it's a job, whether it's a career, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's whatever it is, if you have breath in your lungs, you have the same opportunity to go out and make money as everybody else, right? Maybe not the same level of opportunity, right? As far as skills and talents and stuff like that, but everybody could go get a job at some form or fashion and go produce some level of income. I think we can all agree there. So, but going back to that scarcity mindset led me to not to hoard money, right? To just be like, well, I got to hold on to as much as I can, because what happens if an emergency happens? What happens if this happens? Well, what happens if but my car breaks down or this, and I don't have the money to do that? I was always deathly afraid that I was going to end up homeless, that I was going to end up on the street somewhere. And that was never going to happen. I had too many family members that would be willing to take me in, and I knew that, but still the scarcity mindset was there because I never dealt with it. I never called it out. I just said, I'm just going to do what makes me feel comfortable. I'm going to do what I think is safe to do. And that led me to be in student loan debt for a lot longer than I should have been. Right. And so, but getting back to that, right, it took until I would say about 30 to really come to grips with my history with money, with my past history with money, to bring that out to light and to really look at money as a tool, right? I started to learn about money. I started to understand the good habits that were around money. I started to understand and follow people and talk to people that said, hey, you don't need to be scared about this. You can go make income. Like, that is a real possibility for you. You have the ability to go do that. You can think and you can breathe, so you can make money. And so then I started to take finances a little bit more seriously. I started to see it as a tool and not a crutch, right? And that's really what I was using money for. I was using money for a crutch because I was so scared that I would spend it and it would be gone, right? And it also came down to having a plan for my money, understanding that giving dollars jobs was important, right? If you think about any business, right, you have multiple departments. You have regular line workers, you have mid-level managers, you have high-level managers, you have the CEO, right? And they all have their specific job they do, right? So that the organization can run. But if everybody did the exact same job in the organization would die because there wouldn't be any leadership. If all the managers were just line workers, right? There would be no direction for the company, right? There would be no leadership for the company to grow. You would produce a lot, but doesn't just because you produce a lot doesn't mean you're growing, right? That you're entering new markets, that you're doing the things to further the business, right? If everybody was a CEO, nobody would be there would be no product to produce. So going back to that, the same analogy is that you got to give your dollars jobs, right? And understanding that successful people know exactly where their money is going and what job each dollar has, you begin to feel that sense of calm. That's how I felt. Is that I knew some dollars were going here, some dollars were going towards a savings account for emergency purposes. I had money going towards retirement, right? And I had a budget. I knew how much money I could spend on a monthly basis and be comfortable. And having that sense of calm relieved a lot of that pressure, relieved a lot of that financial anxiety when it came to scarcity mindset. I knew if I followed the things that I was supposed to do, right? If I did the right things by my money would do right by me. And knowing like, hey, I have X amount of dollars in the savings account made me feel comfortable. I know what that is used for in the event I need it. But when you don't have an idea, right, of where your money is going, that's where financial anxiety comes from. Is the fear of the unknown, right? Nobody likes change. Nobody likes the fear of the unknown. And so going back to this whole mentality of mindset and your relationship with your dollars, without knowing those things, you can never begin to paint the picture of the future. You're never going to be able to cast a vision because you're going to always be tied down, chained down by by the memories, the ghosts of futures of the past, and you're not going to be able to shake those things. And it's almost going to be like blockers, right? Like if one of the things here in central Pennsylvania that I see a lot is horses, right? Especially with the Amish, and they always have these little blinders on. And the reason for that is because if cars go by or anything that's on the side, they don't want the horse to get spooked. They just want them to focus on the road in front of them, right? And so, in the same token, if you're looking at that, right, if those are the blinders that you have on, that those past, right, the past is almost like blocking you from seeing your vision, right, from seeing the world around you. All you can see is right in front of you, right, and that's comfort. I need to get comfortable. I need to be not feel this pain anymore, and I can only see one thing in front of me. Whereas if you don't have those blinders on, you can see the world around you. You can see opportunities around you. You can see where you should be putting things as far as your money goes. And so without exploring that past and having someone to help you explore that past, because it's often hard to do on your own. Like I did not do this on my own. I had somebody that helped me figure out all this. And so here are some questions that you should be looking to ask yourself if you want to improve your money relationship this year, or your relationship with money. The first question is is simply this: how was money taught to you growing up? How were you introduced to the idea of money? For me, it was introduced as a very volatile thing, and my relationship with money became very volatile, right? But I know some other people, some other families that taught their children about money and had it talks around it and the benefits of it and how to use it, and they were able to not have the same issues as me. So, ask yourself, how were you taught about money? Right? Was it in school? Was it by your parents? Was it by social media? Whatever it might have been. Well, think about those thoughts, right? And ask yourself, what do I really know about money? Right? What do I know about money that that could potentially be be part of that conversation. So start with there first. Like, how was I taught? What was it? What was it like? Um, and ask yourself, is that the level of education that I need in order to make better financial decisions? If the answer is no, then you need to improve your financial education. If it's yes, I still think you need to improve your financial education. So first question is there. It's like what was money like what was it like growing up with money? Right? And not in the sense you had money. I know that sometimes you hear that. What was it like growing up with money? It means that you're rich. But in this sense, I mean, what was it like growing up and learning and being exposed to money? What were your first initial thoughts there? Another question, right, is to ask yourself, um, if you think about the money decisions that you made as you've gotten older, and we all have said this at some point, like what how can I get better with my money? How can I make better money decisions? So ask yourself this question: go back into your past, right? What in the past has stopped you from making those money decisions? Right? Was it a family member? Was it a situation? Was it kids? Was it, I don't know what thing is specifically holding you back. For me, scarcity mindset, right? Not being able to get past the thought of not being broke, right? Having no money, right? And the fear and the that came along with that. What is that for you? Right? What is something in your past that has held you back from making better money decisions? Write it down. Write these things down on a piece of paper, right? Because these are all limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. Because again, going back to it, if you're living and breathing, you have the ability to make income. Now, if you up your skills, you have the ability to make more income. Okay. But in the same sense, right? What has been holding you back from making better money decisions? Because when you call it out, we can then see it on the paper and say, the next time I have this belief or this thought that runs through my head, I can dispel it. I can say that's not the truth and choose a different thought. Because I always say you can't choose the first thought that runs through your head, but we can often control the second thought that runs through our head, right? So question number one is, what was your relationship like with money? And and the second question is, what has stopped you in the past? Okay. The third question I would ask yourself is, if I'm saying yes to becoming better with my money, what am I saying no to? What part of those limiting beliefs that we just wrote down, what am I saying no to? I'm saying no to all those things because they're limiting beliefs. They're only holding me back. I'm saying no to my past. It is my past. It is because of that. That's where I am. Good, bad, or indifferent. It has shaped me to who I am today. But it doesn't mean you have to remain there. And by calling it out and saying, I'm saying no to these things, and writing that down, saying, I'm saying yes to better money decisions in 2024 or whatever year you're listening to this in, and say, I'm saying no to these things, and write that down, right? Write it down on a piece of paper and keep that and hold on to that, because you need that. You need that awareness, that accountability, that you are going to make better money decisions. Okay, so we have that's our third question. Our fourth and final question right now is, now we've explored our past. We have explored what has stopped us in our past from making better money decisions. We have asked. We have said what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to. And the last thing is kind of the past and the future mixed, right? You're looking at, because I truly believe to fix your past decisions, we need to look to the future. And so this is a really interesting question that you can ask yourself. It's something that we ask all of our clients in our first awareness meeting in our purpose power plan. And that is simply this question: 3 years from now. I don't like looking at 5 to 10 years. Most people can't even fathom what that would look like down the road. Some people can't even fathom what a year will look like from today. But 3 years is a good amount of time. It's just enough in the future. It's just enough in the present to be tangible. So ask yourself this question: 3 years from now, if you were to look back on your life, right, what would have had to happen to consider the choices that you made being successful? Right? What were the decisions that you made that would have made you successful? So it's kind of looking into the future, but also saying, hey, in the present, like I'm making these decisions. So, and write those things down, right? What would you be considered to be a success? Is it getting out of debt? Is it saving money for a down payment on a home? Is it buying a business? Is it selling a business? Is it saving more money for retirement, saving for a kid's education? I don't know, right? But what are the decisions that you made, and what are the outcomes that have had to happen in the next 3 years to be like, hey, I'm really proud of myself? And then call that out. Say, I'm really proud of myself for making these choices, better money decisions, so that I can have the things that I want in the next 3 years. Right. And so it all comes back to understanding your past with your financial future, or unpacking your past when it comes to money, because it will affect your financial future. So, anyways, hopefully you got a lot out of today. If you did, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love to interact with you guys. And if you found this truly impactful, make sure you share this with a family or friend. This is part of our process. This is one of the first things that we take all our clients through, is understanding your past and asking that first initial question: what was it like growing up with money? What was your relationship like? And starting there, so that we can begin the healing process, so that we can begin to build a brighter future. So, anyways, guys, hopefully that brought you a lot of value today. If it did, I'm so grateful. But guys, we will be live for another episode of the Money Talk. So make sure you're here every Friday for another episode. But anyways, guys, have a good one. We will talk to you soon. Enjoy your week, your weekend, wherever you're at. But have a good one. We will talk soon.